But anywho, well, those are rare to come by these days since Michael Jackson and the other Anna Nicole lady. But anyway, welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. Did you catch our last show on tripping? Well, wham, you should listen to that one. This dude's tripping balls the whole show on just tripping. We were just talking about hardcore dope.
Hardcore dope. Hardcore dope.
Psychedelics. He wrote a book from Inner Traditions on psychedelics, and we tripped out. But anyway, and no alien dildos, but that tripping show, I guess it's okay to talk about that stuff now everywhere since it's like Joe Rogan and all that. Seems like they're just talking about it. I actually went to YouTube and typed in dildo reviews and like just to see what the rules were on that, and there apparently are no rules on that. There might be like some lady flopping around a big fish all over the camera. I'm like, what's going on? But anyway, you're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. Our guest is sick. We're going to reschedule him. It was Victor Baines on Nostradamus. We'll get him on. He also talked on the phone not too long ago. Cool dude. Talked about an alien encounter with a UFO and telepathy with his friend. I think he was on a bike or something. But anywho, we'll get into that.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I had an interesting passage from
The
Nostradamus that fits in with tonight. It says it's in Century 2, Quatrain 62, Nostradamus writes, Mabus then will soon die. There will come of people and beasts a horrible rout. Then suddenly one will see vengeance, 100 hand thirst, hunger when the comet will run. What? Yeah, you have the Geminid meteor shower tonight, so I don't know that that could have the stars could have aligned for tonight's show.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of weird Mabus stuff since this all started. I can remember, partying during my party years in my early years and coming across that word. And I was hanging out with a lot of bands, and I had some inclination to make a band called that or something. I never did it, but it turned into the show. And just a lot of weird stuff with that word that I've seen over the years. And, I'm familiar with John Hogue and a lot of different people. John Hogue was pretty much the one that kind of brought that to the limelight with his own documentaries and stuff, and kind of I think I don't know if he is the original person that associated the word Antichrist with that, and that may be a possibility that he was, because it's not really in the quatrains that's what that is, which maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, that's the mystery of it. Maybe that is, because a lot of people think Nostradamus called Hitler. Well, he did, Hisler. So that was weird. And that's what's weird about Eric. You hear what Eric's saying off the cuff and you're like, oh, just dismiss it. But once he starts breaking down Drumpf with acronyms and putting it up there with Hisler and the breakdowns, like he breaks it down at a genius level, and you start to look at it like, this is really creepy. And Trump is, to me, a Napoleonic kind of a dipshit kind of character. So, I mean, who knows what the hell's about to happen as far as everything goes. It's scary. I mean, he could be like a Benedict Arnold with all this stuff. Because, there's just so many different things. He could, turn out to do something decent, which probably not. But I've also seen some weirdness with Osama and Bush. If you put those together, Mabus. If you put Obama and Bush together, Mabus. So is it an acronym for the time period that we're in? I've tripped out and said, well, hope I'm not Mabus, and I croak, and then that's what this was the whole show. Probably paranoid delusion, hopefully. But I think Nostradamus could see into future lives, and he also referenced his son in some writings. And there's some Oracle tarot decks. I have it somewhere. I don't think I even opened it, but it's about all the weird symbols that had something to do with some communication with his son. And I've even heard some rumors, or I don't know if I've seen it but I've had trouble finding it. That there might have been some UFO extraterrestrial stuff mentioned in some of his quatrains, but that seems kind of hard to find. But I have seen some stuff like that, some mention. I know I've seen it mentioned, but I don't seem to be able to find much about it.
There we go. Okay. I was there we go. Fire from the Sky in 81. There's a little finger. Is that coming across? Can you see that?
Yeah, fire from the sky, city almost burned. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, there's I was jotting down a couple things. You just have to wonder what he get there. What was the other one I was looking for? Okay, there's Hister and Quatrain 24. There was something like the stake in the. Can't find it now.
The movie. I don't know if you've ever seen. Not to interrupt you, but real quick, the movie.
The Dart from the Sky. That was the one I was looking for.
Have you ever seen the movie? I forget what, like 1990 something, but someone plays him in a movie, and it's not bad. It's got crappy reviews. Not that I care; they're wrong most of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of times. But it's an older movie about Nostradamus's life. Rutger Hauer is in it as some monk that blows up stuff. But there's a scene in it where Nostradamus does take psychedelics. I don't know how accurate that is with everything, but he does some psychedelics and trips out and sees crazy stuff and writes it down. But it's actually a pretty good movie. There's a good soundtrack. It's like 1996 or something like that. Let me look it up.
Oh no, I didn't see that. What was he also in another like medieval movie, maybe in the late 80s, with where he was a human like at day, then he'd turn into an animal at night, and then his girl, love interest was an animal during the day, and
talking about Rutger Hauer.
Yeah,
it's possible. I couldn't tell you that offhand, but
yeah, it was. So they couldn't be like part of the like medieval curse was you have like opposites going on at the same time.
Is it that crazy werewolf movie in the French movie? What's that one called again? The werewolf movie. Brotherhood of the Wolf.
No, that's not that one. It's that sounds interesting.
I'll look it up. What is? Are you sure this isn't furry porn?
No, it has. And it's not aquatic porn with dolphins in it either.
Yeah, I can't even spell Rutger Hauer's name, so kind of a weird one. Rutgerhauer, and what do they turn into? Animals, shapeshifting.
Yeah. What's her name? Michelle Pfeiffer might.
Are you talking about Wolf with Jack Nicholson?
No.
Okay.
I might have the wrong.
Well, I know Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson are in a werewolf movie, and Jack Nicholson pisses on James Spader's shoe in the restroom. He's like, "I'm just marking my territory."
No,
but that's what
it's not that one.
Shift though and stuff, but I don't know. I don't think Rutger Hauer's in it.
Okay. There was someone like it's been out for 30 some years or more.
Is it Lady Hawk?
That might be. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's a fantasy that's pretty well known. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I've seen it.
There's like I'm sure everyone in the audience was sitting there yelling at me. It's Lady Hawk. You know, I just think of the title of it. It was a good movie. I liked it.
I wouldn't mind watching again. I wouldn't have known if I found it on Google searching. I put both their names in and it came up. But that's a good like fantasy movie. That's pretty good.
But yeah, there when just at this time of the year, guests, just kind of got sick and just eventually made it out of the bed to call me and say, I need to reschedule. I'm just really sick. So it's like, okay, we'll do it. But this um, medieval Renaissance time period has a lot of interesting writings emerging from it.
Yeah, this year I swear we had like 6 cancellations in a row or something from family emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the apocalypse. So hopefully Victor heals. I'm sure he will. May the aliens heal him. No probes, and he'll be back in February, hopefully. But we were also talking about cannabis on the phone, me and Victor. So we'll be chilling with the cannabis. We'll have some cannabis. But anywho, I like good sword and sorcery movies. There's some good ones out there. You gotta dig though. There's some cheese. Deathstalker. That's some big cheese, but there's some good ones. There's supposed to be some new Conan the Barbarian series coming. Apparently, it was coming to Amazon, but it was too. What's the toxic masculinity crap or something, some kind of controversy. So they're moving it somewhere to Netflix or something. I don't know. It wasn't woke, I guess. So they're getting rid of it. But Conan the Barbarian, Robert Howard. We've done shows about him with my friend Jeffrey Shanks, and he's done some archaeological stuff digging around that dude's house. But yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about. Make sure a dog don't bark. Got to cut it out. Quit it. But anyway, one thing I want to talk about is basically we're having an alien invasion. Drones. I see this guy Cliff High that made WebBot, like he predicted it. And there's all this stuff. They're going to stop Trump's inauguration with an alien fake invasion from deep state. And these are like serious headline. Well, it's serious to these people, the radio host of all this stuff. They're like going crazy. New Jersey congressman says it's an Iranian mothership sending drones from the ocean to get us. Like they're just going
it's an Iranian mothership.
Probably their own government crap showing off to other countries. Like, mess with us. We got weird stuff going on. Here you go. Like Phoenix Lights weirdness. But Wham, what were you saying about it all? You got some drone activity?
It's been happening. This has been happening in New Jersey, but it's actually on a lower level. It's been going on for a little while. It's just that what's been going on in New Jersey has been kind of an acceleration of it. But no, we've had some sightings like that here in the Hudson Valley in New York and over down south towards Jersey. It was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I actually saw something odd myself on the way to work in the morning on my morning commute. And there were just a bunch of us in a row, cars going south down 9W. Any of my listeners who may be from this part of the world, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. A 9W between Kingston and what is it? Kingston and Marlboro, just north of the Mid-Hudson Bridge. And I saw this flash out of the corner of my left eye, and I looked up, and there was this. The sun had not yet risen; it was just about to rise, and but this flash was high in the sky, and it was some kind of a large light, and it was an object of some type, a large object. It was right over the river. And it wasn't that high up in the air. I mean, it wasn't like, and really wasn't that far from me either. And at first I thought maybe it was like a helicopter, like a traffic helicopter. But then when I really looked at it as much as I could while driving, I noticed that there weren't any of the required FAA lights on it, as you would have to have on a helicopter like that. And it wasn't moving like a helicopter. It was it would move up, and then it was moving like a drone. It would move up, and then it would move side to side and then come down a little bit. And so then I thought, well, it's a drone. But as I got closer to it, it was getting larger, and I could see it was a lot bigger than a drone. I mean, we have drones here all the time. The police use them for surveying crowds and stuff at events. And there are people who, fly them around, but those are the small ones. This was really big. It was a really big machine. And it just had like a single light on it, or actually you couldn't really tell about a light. It just seemed to kind of glow, which I thought was very strange. And I thought to myself, surely I can't be the only person seeing this, because it was in plain sight of like all the cars that were, going south. And then all of a sudden it disappeared. It just winked out, just boom, just like that. It was gone.
So
And I just continued to drive, and I was like, okay then.
So when what do you think if it was the
Well,
drones
it was moving kind of like a drone, because drones can go up and down, and they can
Right.
go side to side, so it was moving kind of like a drone. And also in the sense that, drones can hover, so it would hover,
Mhm.
and drones can, they can go slowly side to side, or they can speed up, they can kind of do that sort of thing. So it was moving like a drone would, which is why I thought, oh, it's a drone. Except then I realized that it was huge. I mean, it was way larger than a drone would be. And I was actually too far. I mean, even though I could see it clearly, I was actually, if it was a regular, like little commercial drone or something, I wouldn't have been able to see it at the level that I could see it. It was something that was large at the distance that it was. Does that make sense? And I even kind of as I was driving, I was even kind of looking to see whether or not the glow on it was caused by reflection from the sunrise that was coming.
Mhm.
But it was actually glowing on the wrong side of that, so it wasn't a reflection. It was glowing towards us, which would have been on, away from the sun. And like I said, it didn't look like it was a light particularly that was on. It looked like the whole thing was glowing.
So
You couldn't have any FAA lights on it, no blinking lights. As like if it was a traffic helicopter, which sometimes they do have traffic helicopters there over by the Mid-Hudson Bridge because of the nature of that bridge. Or they sometimes use helicopters, like if there's been like on that bridge, we get a lot of jumpers.
yeah, so do you have any explanation for what
No.
it could have been with the unusual movements?
Well, like I said, it moved like a drone, like a
Mhm.
drone would, but it was way bigger than any drone I've ever seen.
Well, that's what's being reported in New Jersey.
Yeah, I know.
So what are they?
I don't know. That's the thing. I mean, I thought it was really curious when I saw it.
Mhm.
I think the thing that really kind of weirded me out about it was that it just disappeared. It was just like I was looking at it, and I mean, I had to watch traffic and then watch it and watch traffic and watch it, and it was there. It was a good 5 minutes that I was watching it, and then all of a sudden I looked, and there was no trace of it. It it was just gone.
That's a
It wa
lengthy time.
Yeah, it was. And it was in full view of of commuter traffic coming both ways, up and down
Okay.
the river. So it was.
Okay. So that sounds a lot like the Phoenix Lights case, where there are a lot of eyewitnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you just can't say that many people, because I know Lynn has been a guest with Joe a lot. It's like you can't discredit thousands of people who saw something. Right? You can if it's just a single person, but I mean, it's something hovering over uh, rush hour traffic. You can't say you just never saw that. It's
Right. Well,
just
and and what's weird is that, I mean, there's several, I mean, this isn't the first time that I've seen odd things over the Hudson River. I've actually seen strange lights this is the first time during the daytime, but I've
Mhm.
actually seen strange lights over the Hudson River more than once. And um and each case that I've seen them, I'm not the only person who has seen them. In fact, there was one, and this was several years ago. I saw two. It was at night, and it was relatively late at night. It was like maybe 9:30 at night, and I had just come across. I'd been on the east side of the river for an event, and I came across to the side of the river I live on, and it was a Saturday night, so there were quite a few cars out. It was quite a bit of traffic out. It was kind of early fall, I think. So the weather wasn't bad or anything. And it was pretty clear outside, except that there were some low hanging clouds. But it wasn't cloudy, you know? And I was coming down or going, what was it? I guess it would have been southeast on 32 from the Rhinebeck Bridge. And I saw these two lights. I saw them sort of at first at a distance, and they looked like they were right over the river, and they were stationary, and they were just hanging there in the sky, not too high up. They were just hanging there, hovering over the river. And as I moved, as I continued to drive, I just watched them because they looked odd, because they were just hovering. They weren't moving at all. They were just hanging out there, but they weren't stars. You could tell that because at one point, the moon was out a little bit, and at one point you could see the reflection of some clouds, and so I realized they were below the clouds, and they were just hanging there. And so I came as I was coming closer to them as I continued to drive. They were getting closer and closer because I was getting closer to their relative position. And finally, there's this one stoplight, and I stopped there. And they had started out like way over here in front of me, and by the time I stopped, they were like right here, like close to me, relatively close, but they were just hanging in the sky. And as soon as I stopped the car, I thought, well, I'm close enough now. I can roll down the window and see if there's any sound. And so I did that, and there was no sound. And as soon as I rolled down the window, like literally, as soon as I rolled down the window, both of them at the same time just started moving really fast in tandem, just, and they were gone. And what was weird about it was that when I'd first pulled up to see them, I'd glanced over to the person who was on my right in this other car, in a car that was to my right. I glanced over, and they were looking at it too. And we glanced at each other and sort of acknowledged, and that was before I rolled down the window. So it was quite a lengthy observation. You know what I mean? I mean, they were probably in sight for 10 minutes. And then as literally as soon as I rolled down the window and to hear and realize they were silent, they just both, like in formation, just took off to the north, really pretty rapidly. And then I found out later, I went to another presentation, or maybe I was doing a UFO or something, some kind of presentation. And I found out that week, several other people had seen things like that over the Hudson too. There were several other people who came up to me after the presentation and said, yeah, we saw this. And so, and like one couple came up and they actually had taken a picture of it on their phone of something similar.
Yeah.
So,
William, as you
but
were
see,
talking,
the part of the thing is that in the Hudson Valley, these kinds of things are really common. People see them all the time. They see them they see strange lights in the sky so much, especially in certain locations, that people don't even bother reporting them.
yeah,
That's how common it is.
yeah, I have a question. You were talking about, you wanted to roll down your window to hear if there was a sound.
Yeah.
Was there an engine? You
Or
were wondering.
did it sound like a drone, or were these drones?
Yeah, or
You
was
know,
there no sound? Well, okay, you found out there was no sound, but as soon as you put the windows down, okay, they start
they
moving away from you, and Keel's the Mothman prophecies. You know, he has some interactions like that, like doing the Morse code with UFOs, where he was turning on his lights, and uh, it was nighttime, and he was on a hill, and he was turning on his
right.
lights and putting on the high beams, and the UFO was responding to that, or the lights. Do you does it seem like there was was it just coincidence that as soon as you put the window down that they moved, or are they? Do you think that they're sensing something?
I just thought it was weird. I mean,
Yeah,
like I don't try to speculate as to why that would be. I just noticed the correspondence between me
mhm.
rolling down the window and kind of leaning out a little bit to see if I could hear anything, and then them taking off. I don't know. I have no idea whether, I mean, obviously, if you do something like that from the human perspective, it seems like a response of some type, but I don't know if it is or not. And I don't know. You know, I mean, all of the various things that I've experienced here, um, in the valley, have all been they've all been kind of weird and uncanny. You know what I mean? In the sense that it happens, and there's a part of me that doesn't quite believe that it's happening because, I've been talking about and studying this stuff and involved in the paranormal community for, most of 40 years. And I haven't had as many experiences as some people. Like, I haven't had as many experiences as Jeffrey has had. And I've had a variety of experiences, but some of them have been kind of low level. So that when something does seem to happen, there's a part of me that doesn't quite believe it. It's kind of like, really? Really? You're just hanging out in the sky, and then all of a sudden you're just gonna shoot away from me now? That's kind of what my response is to it. It's like, oh yeah, you're just being stereotypical UFOs, aren't you? I mean, that's sort of actually my response. Other than that, I don't really know. I mean, you know, the most extraordinary experience that I had here is so bizarre that I rarely talk about it because it makes no sense to me, and it just sounds bizarre. And the only reason I know that I'm not completely insane is because I have heard a few other people talk about similar experiences they've had, not only here, but in other places. And so I know that all I know is that I'm not the only person who's had this experience like this. That doesn't mean we're not weird. Okay. But
Can you tell the experience to everyone?
I have told the experience on here
Which
before.
one was it? Which one was it? Just briefly.
Well, it was a few years ago. It was, maybe in 2013, 2014. It was a while ago. And I was going home from a sociology class that I had taught. I think it was a sociology of religion class that I used to teach at the community college over in Dutchess County. And I was coming across the Mid-Hudson Bridge, the same bridge that I talked about earlier, except this was at night. It was maybe 9:30, 9:45 at night. I was very tired. I had had a long day, but my brain was very clear. I was doing what I often did when I had an evening class, which was kind of debriefing in my own head, about the class. So my brain was very much in high rational mode. You know what I mean? I wasn't thinking about anything paranormal, anything weird. And when you go across the bridge, the Mid-Hudson Bridge, you take kind of a hard right and you go up an incline, and then you take a hard left, and you're continuing the incline, and there's sort of a ridge off to your right, and there's like one of those companies, at least at the time, I don't know what's there now, but there's a building there that at the time when this happened, at the time it was a one of those storage places, where you can rent storage space.
Self-storage.
Yeah, and at the time, these are gone now, but at the time there were toll booths. So you do the right turn and then the left turn, and at kind of at the not quite at the apex of going up that hill before you'd go on to the off ramp, there were toll booths there. So you had to kind of slow down. And as I came around, I took the right turn. And as I came around taking the left turn, I saw that there was this huge, I mean, it is impossible for me to even describe how big it was. This huge ship in the sky over, it was so large that it was kind of like it was looming. It looked like it was coming over where the self-storage building was, and that it was just coming over, like the front part of it was just coming over the toll booths, and the bottom of it was no more than 100 feet in the air. And I can't even describe how huge it was. It like blotted out the sky. And I was so transfixed by it that I almost wrecked the car. I had to slow way down. And it looked like there was these windows in it. And there was this light coming out of the windows. And I can kind of describe what the light was like. It was kind of a orangey, peachy color, but it was extremely bright, and it was pulsing, and it had this depth and this, it wasn't like any light I've ever seen here around, I mean, I'd never really seen anything like it before. It was transfixing. And I remember thinking to myself, does this shit happen all the time here? So that like New Yorkers don't even notice this? I remember I was thinking this in my brain. And I passed underneath it through the toll booth area, underneath it. And then I just kept going because I didn't want to stop because I was in traffic. I kept going, and I came to the ramp, which exited off to the right. And as I curved around, I turned like I kind of slowed way down. Nobody was immediately behind me. And I turned to look, and I could see the mechanism of this huge ship.
Hmm.
And it was like I could see the front of it beaming the light down onto, like the toll booth and everything, where I'd seen the windows, and I could see this huge mechanism. I mean, it was the size of a football stadium. It was huge. There
That
was
was
all of this mechanism stuff in the back. It was kind of teardrop shaped, roughly from what I could tell, as the rest of it kind of sunk into darkness. And I was just like, I have no idea what that is. And I just kept driving because it freaked me out. I had and of course, nobody said anything about it. There was no notice about it. There was, nothing was said that anybody else saw it. The only indicator that there might have been something that somebody else saw was that I got a report like maybe a month or two later, where a woman from the other side of the river said that she saw something over the Mid-Hudson Bridge. But I didn't get any details on that. But it was like, I didn't tell anybody about this for a long time, because I was just like, am I the only person who saw this? Is this and every time I go over the bridge at night going that way, I always look up to see, could this have been a reflection? Could this have, it's like I'm still, years later trying to explain to myself what could have come together for me to see what I saw. I have no idea what it was. It was completely bizarre.
Well, it's credible though, but you can go back to Barney Hill's report. I think he's the one that who could see into the windows. So there is a pattern.
Yeah, he saw a pilot or somebody
Yes,
looking out at him. Yeah.
but there are other documented cases like what you're talking about. A lot of people know now about your story. Maybe they'll call Joe and let him um, know their story. But you know, your story is believable.
Well, it's hard. It's the only thing that made me feel better about it is that like I said, I have heard the accounts of several other people who have had, who have seemingly seen something like that with other people around, that other people, or like in traffic or in a populated area, that it didn't look like anybody else was seeing that anybody else was seeing it. And so that at least has helped me to see that I'm not crazy, but I don't really know what it was. All I can tell you is what it looked like. I mean, I felt no fear from the windows. I don't think I saw anybody in the windows. I just saw this light coming out of the windows, and it was beautiful. It was stunning. It was awe-inspiring. It was amazing. But it was also one of those things where it's like, on another level, it's like there are all kinds of things happening around us, like all the time, that most people pay no attention to, that we're just kind of clueless about some of the other things that are going on in the universe. And I also didn't get a sense that it was an invasion force. It seemed to be kind of natural where it was, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It didn't seem dangerous, I guess I'll put it that way. I didn't feel danger from it. I felt awe from it, but not danger.
Well, I don't think your story sounds crazy. Like if you would say that, when you uh, were going driving past the self storage unit and you saw Miss Moffat, I'd be a little concerned, but I believe I believe you. But what do people, uh, you know, since you've been involved in sociology, how are people responding to these kinds of stories that might be happening more frequently? Uh, you know, either your story, or just you know, or the last 24 hours, the news cycle is pretty much dominated by drones.
Right.
How is Ancient Aliens and UPRN um, changed people's perceptions of unusual um, phenomena.
Phenomena. Well, you know, I, I don't, I don't really think, I don't really think in essence much has changed. I think it seems like stuff has changed because social media and social mass media affords more open discussion
Hmm.
or opinion making or conspiracy mongering or just sort of jaw flapping about things. But in terms of actual theories, um so I, I haven't seen I haven't seen any theories now that are, if they're good theories, I haven't seen any theories now that are really any different than some of the best theories that were proposed 40, 50 years ago, by people like Vallée or Keel or, or even Ivan Sanderson in some cases. Um, and I think that the only thing that's changed, other than just sort of like the level of gab about it, because social media and the internet affords that, it hasn't necessarily made any particular group of people more open than they would be otherwise, because everybody's got their own opinion. And like if you get on some of these forums, or if you get on subreddits or whatever, you'll find that people are just as, I mean, there are a few groups, a few places where there's like open acceptance and understanding of different things, but a lot of times those discussions simply exist for people to spout their opinions or to shoot other people down. Um, I don't know. A lot of the people that I know that are actually doing deep thinking about this stuff, they actually don't participate that much in those kinds of forums. And the people that are doing the on the ground research are often not the people who have podcasts. So I'm not, if you're familiar with the the Paracast, I was asked to be on the Paracast a couple of weeks ago. I guess it's been about 3 weeks ago. Yeah. And one of the questions that I was asked, because we talked about UFOs and about other Fortean things, and one of the questions I was asked by one of the interviewers was what I thought about like the latest stuff coming from the Navy and the military, and the AUP stuff and all that. And I said, well, frankly, I don't think about that stuff very much. because from my perspective, not the only thing that's changed is that some of this stuff has become a little bit more mainstreamed now. But you still have journalists making fun of it. You still have mainstream journalists making fun of it. You still have every conceivable kind of weird conspiracy theory floating out around it. Most of the stories aren't even that new. To me, the most important thing about all of this is that for the serious investigator, and this is maybe the good part, for the serious investigator, just simply because of the internet and because of the ability to get a hold of some information now, especially older information, it is now possible to do a personal level of research on a level that maybe you couldn't before, because you're able to get books and materials from a number of different places more easily, and you're able to collate them a little bit more easily. That doesn't mean everybody avails themselves of that, because people still tend to sort of, stick to their little bailiwick of things. But, and I do think that among some of the younger investigators, even though I do think a lot of them suffer from lack of historical context sometimes. So some of them still are reinventing the wheel, and they really don't need to do that. But despite that, a lot of them are more open to the possibility that UFOs and ghosts and Bigfoot and all these different things are actually on a continuum rather than distinct phenomena. Does that make sense?
Hey,
Yeah.
Wham. Hey, Wham, was there any hot seat questions about you being on this show? And also, was it any of it about your statement that you made that you originally thought they approached you about?
No, actually, it wasn't. There were no hot seat questions.
Wow, good.
There were no hot seat questions at all. It was actually a very congenial, rather entertaining conversation. And it turned out that one of the hosts actually, I sent them PDFs of my books, and he actually read the Mysterious Beauty Hudson Valley book and liked it a lot.
Cool.
So it was like, okay, cool. So
I know
it was,
that Christopher O'Brien guy died. I know he's on there a lot.
oh, well, yeah. And we talked about that. We started talking about Christopher O'Brien because he had just died. And that was kind of shocking to me because, I had some conversation with him myself, because I had done, I guess it was a couple of years, almost exactly 2 years previous to that, I had done a kind of a retrospective on cattle mutilations because I had reread Mystery Stalks the Prairie, which is really the first book about cattle mutilations, and it focused on that cluster of mutilations that happened in Montana in the 1970s. It was before Melinda Moulton Howe even, became associated with this. And I wanted to do a retrospective on that because I wanted to talk about the cattle mutilation that I saw. I mean, I didn't witness it happening, but the results thereof that I had seen in the early 70s when I lived in eastern Kansas, when there was a cluster of them going on there. And I had used Christopher O'Brien's book and had used some of David Perkins' analysis in Christopher O'Brien's book, and I actually disagreed with David about some of the conclusions that he had drawn about some of, but it was fine. I mean, it was all it's like when you have a set of data, you can, depending on how you analyze that data, you can agree or disagree about the particulars of what conclusions might be drawn. You know what I mean? It depends on how you focus on the data and also what you know about it, if you know the context of the data or not. And so I disagreed with him about some of his conclusions, but not about his overall thesis this is David Perkins. And so apparently the two of them had heard about me. And so they both contacted me and we had conversation. And so it was, I mean, off and on. And Christopher O'Brien was a very nice guy. He's a very they were both very generous, interesting people. And before the weekend before he died, I actually had thought about him and contacting him again about a couple things in his book, Stalking the Herd, because I was working on another podcast or another blog, and the topic of cattle mutilations came up in it. And so I thought I need to ask him about something. But then, of course, I put it out on my mind. And then the next thing I knew, I'd found out that he died. So it was just freaky. You know, it was like.
Getting back to the UFO drone thing, I think what's really going on now on a lot of levels is we have technology that me and you could probably fathom it, but most people can't. The technological level of stuff that countries have now. And I think it's just people showing off their shit, really. And maybe some of it has some alien origins as far as the tech being retrieved from some down crash. I don't know. But I think we'd be really shocked if it's kind of like a hidden game and they're showing their hands.
I mean, I guess my suspicion about the drones, these big drones, is I think they're of human origin. That's my suspicion. Exactly why it's going on right now, because, you know, this was happening 2 years ago, you know, during the pandemic in Colorado and Wyoming. And so why this is happening, I don't know, but I do think they're of human origin.
About 10 years ago, maybe 15, some kind of craft came in my yard here in Florida, made no noise. It was sound like a small mini helicopter that was in stealth flying around the yard, trees blowing around, and it was like something was flying around the yard, but you could not see it. And I think they have that kind of technology. And then I can remember in Kingsport, Tennessee, I don't even know, 20 years ago, maybe, being up on a mountain and seeing this giant craft with like a dock open, like it looked like a mothership almost, like something you'd see in a sci-fi movie. And the dock was open and all these other ones were going into it. So, I mean, that sounds like the stuff we're seeing now almost. So they've probably had shit for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
We'd be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a part of me that kind of thinks that some of the reason why this is being done is in possible anticipation of civic unrest here. You know, just to see to test to see what people's responses to it will be. I'm just surprised nobody has like shot one out of the sky. Honestly.
There's some interesting, I don't know if you've seen that, what is it, Alien Investigation with George Knapp yet on Netflix?
Yeah, I've watched a couple episodes.
The Brazil story seems to have those things coming out of the ocean on a mass level, and the government, U.S. was there, and some people got attacked, and they even interviewed some lady that had like scar tissue still from the wounds and stuff. But I mean, that's similar things. That's what that congressman said, but he sounds, I don't know who it is. He probably sounds like a kook maybe, but somebody said they saw like 50 of those come out of the ocean up there. And I don't know if it's New Jersey. I think so, but that was his quote. He saw 50 UFOs coming out of the ocean. And that's the same thing down there in Brazil that they were just investigating. Very similar. It's definitely crazy.
Yeah. You know, one congressman was saying there was a mothership off the coast.
Yeah,
Iranian.
Iranian. Yeah, I don't believe that. How would he know whether it was an Iranian mothership?
They give it to them for joining their cause, and they get one Iranian mothership. I mean, they might be trading this stuff. That might be the level that's going on. Give you one Iranian mothership, You join our team. You get one Iranian mothership. I think that's it. But I know when the fuse finally lit, it's going to be one shit show blowing up, buddy. That's all I know. What about Battle for Los Angeles? You remember that story? We had a guy on his name that was real into that.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Alive still. I don't even think that dude's alive. But that was them gunning down a big UFO, and they got pictures of it. I know Dan Aykroyd talks about that on that documentary with David Sarita. Gets into that heavily.
Well, I think I actually, let's see, I've got to check to make sure that I haven't changed it, but I administer a group that's on Facebook called Hudson Valley Paranormal Central, and I've got I've posted a couple of the drone things on here, and including some pretty good photos of some of the drones, of some of the lights. But the cover picture for the group for this group is that LA, that thing with the beams coming down, that looks kind of like, something out of H.G. Wells,
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds, yeah.
It's just crazy.
Now,
really crazy.
the PSYOP idea sounds very plausible.
I mean, because that's the first thing I started thinking about was, they're wanting to, these would be like the perfect machines for crowd control, because the Israelis have been using similar kinds of devices. They're a little bit smaller. They're not like the size of an SUV or a car, but they're bigger than a commercial drone. And they've been using them to gun people down in Gaza and in South Lebanon. And how do I know this? Because they themselves have been spreading, their own soldiers have been posting these things on Israeli TikTok. So this is not like some kind of Al Jazeera conspiracy, although Al Jazeera goes to Israeli TikTok to find the footage. But, they're able to kind of float above things. And in other words, they're basically snipers in the air. And so, they're probably just kind of testing the temperament of people. And of course they would fly them over sensitive areas, not because they're actually endangering those sensitive areas, but part of the the espionage double blind that intelligence played, whether it was CIA or Air Force intelligence. I mean, various intelligence agencies were in on some of these things, when it came to some of the augmented, both augmented and falsified UFO reports in the past. And if people are interested in knowing which ones I'm talking about, they can read Jacques Vallée, because he discusses several of these in his book Dimensions. And then John Keel also had investigated some of these things. But one of the things that you do is you create a situation where you go over these sensitive sites so that it looks like something else is doing it, but it's really not. It's just us doing it. We may even, sometimes intelligence agencies even do this to other to other branches of the military without telling them that they're doing it. You know what I mean? But I mean,
You
it's pretty typical of black ops or psyops.
know, when you've been doing, your drives home, and like one of these sightings happen, or you're leaving for the day. I don't know if you have a pet with you, or maybe
Mm-mm.
some of the people you uh, communicate with have pets in the car with them. Have you heard reports about how pets respond to these kind of sightings?
Um, not personally, because we don't have a pet right now at all, and the pet that we did have, was not a person who would come in the car with me for any reason. Um, the only responses that I've heard to odd phenomena is the woman that I know here in the Hudson Valley who um, does Bigfoot research, Gail Beatty. Um, and some of her Bigfoot research, some of the witnesses that she has interviewed, some of them report, not only Bigfoot, kind of classic Bigfoot experiences and
Hmm.
sightings, but there are other types of phenomena that are often accompany those, like lights in the sky, or strange lights in the fields, or strange lights in the woods, that sort of thing. And some of them have reported um, just animal disturbances, like disturbances among horses, disturbances with cows. There have been a few possible mutilations, but most of the mutilations that have been reported here have not been of cattle or domestic animals, but have been of game, of deer, of
Hmm.
rabbits, wild rabbits. Um, and what people find are quite distinct from, what hunters, usually it's hunters that find them because they're in the woods or in places where hunters are going. And they're quite distinct. The things that they find are quite distinct from predation, in sort of the classic ways, the stripped muzzle,
Hmm.
the pretty much what you see in a cattle mutilation, except it'll be a deer. um, gail has Gail does occasionally, because of where she lives and what she does occasionally have some odd phenomena around her house that she has reported. And occasionally she's had a couple of strange animal deaths. And she has told me about a couple of times when her chickens were disturbed by something that was, clearly not a raccoon or a possum or anything like that. So, but in terms of like pets, I haven't personally heard of any, because I haven't known anybody who's seen something who's had an animal with them to be able to say that.
Sometimes you uh, do encounter references uh, that a pet was the first to recognize the presence of
Right.
whatever it was. I was just um, throwing out the question, based on a few samples of the readings I've uh,
Yeah,
come across. It's an interesting topic.
right. Well, there's in the latest blog that I did, the David Enigma. Part of the reason I did that particular book is that one of the characteristics of a lot of those cases These were a cluster of cases that occurred in southern Wales in the mid-70s. One of the things that makes those stories so interesting and compelling is that there are a lot of animal effects on dogs in particular. Dogs in particular are reacting to whatever the phenomena are. And in a number of cases, the dogs who and a lot of these are working dogs or farm dogs. I mean, they're pets, but they're dogs that are used to harsh conditions and some stress. You know what I mean? So there are a number of cases where the animals, after they encounter or see or witness along with their owners, either one of the lights or one of the objects, or in some cases, some of the humanoid-like figures that were seen, that the animals, their personality completely changes. And in one case, the animal, they clearly were traumatized. And in one case, the animal was so traumatized by whatever it was that, I mean, it wasn't like the phenomena hurt it in any way. All it really did was encounter it. You know what I mean? But it was so disturbed by it that it was never the same. And because it was a working dog, a working farm dog, and it was clearly really distressed and couldn't really function anymore, wouldn't even go out to use the bathroom from the house unless a human was right there with it, that they eventually euthanized the animal because it was in such distress. It was actually psychologically suffering at such a level.
Wow, that's from a UFO experience, seeing a UFO.
Well, not just a UFO, but a humanoid. It was a weird humanoid. I mean, it was like, you just have to listen to it. It was like, I mean, there's something about those stories coming out of David in that, you know how Mothman Prophecy is really a creepy book.
Yeah.
Well, the David Enigma is a really creepy book. It's creepy in exactly the same way.
I gotta dig it out.
It's really, I mean,
digging it out, really.
I mean, some of the accounts in there are like among the strangest I've ever read. And I mean, just uncanny, the whole uncanny valley thing, just seriously weird. And the two investigators that investigate the cases really do a good job. They are on the scene. All of the cases that they include in the book are firsthand. Like all of them, they interview the people who had the experience, and they reproduce the interviews, and they go to the places where the experiences happened, and they do measurements, and it's exhaustive. It's actually really good.
But it's thoroughly researched, and
yes,
all sides are present, and I think that was what I was commenting on, while we were in the green room, is Jeff the Talking Mongoose is like that too, and I think that's why I really enjoyed it. I think Tim Swartz did a great job of bringing together almost every like notes, case studies from a group, someone's, just a small journal entry from a visitor to the family's house. He was able to compile an awful lot of information and present the story from many different angles, but it's left up for you to make up your mind. Was this animal really talking and interacting with the family.
Right.
That movie is called Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose, a 2023 British black comedy written and directed by Adam Segal and starring Simon Pegg, Minnie Driver, Christopher Lloyd, and the voice of Neil Gaiman as the mongoose, I guess. Oh, Neil Gaiman's in some big trouble lately with some sex stuff, unfortunately. I don't know the details, but I know he's canceled, I'm pretty sure.
What's it called? Nandor?
Let me look it up again. It's right. Nandor Fodor, Fodor, and the Talking Mongoose. Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose. 42 on Rotten Tomatoes, which, they're not always right. But 2023 British Black Comedy, 2023. I think it's on Amazon. Simon Pegg. I watch any movie he's usually in, and I've never seen a bad one per se. But
Well, what was his zombie movie?
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, Shaun. That's actually a technically brilliant movie. This kind of ranks up there with like Psycho.
I saw. It's a good one.
It's just the painstaking detail of recreating the scenes, repeating how the actors looked prior to being bitten. It's really well done, and you don't see mistakes.
It's a good
I
one.
was very impressed with just every aspect of the movie.
I remember them throwing the records at the zombies. I can remember. I know they're doing a 28 years later, which is, of course, there's 28 days later, 28 weeks later, and then the trailer just came out for 28 years later. It looks batshit crazy. Alex Garland's doing it. And I know Danny Boyle did some of the other ones. I don't know how much he's involved, but
those were very well done movies as well.
Yeah.
Interesting premise.
I can't think of the Irish dude's name that's in a bunch of movies. He was in the crazy one with Colin Farrell recently. Well, Brendan Gleeson. How could I forget that? But some guy on my Facebook attended his school as an acting school, and Brendan Gleeson was his teacher. I don't remember the dude's name, but I remember him telling me his story. But Brendan Gleeson was in one of those maybe 28 months later. But the trailer for the new one looks crazy. Looks creepy, real creepy. Because it seems like there's a lot of cults rising, and it looks like Walking Dead, but actually a lot better on a lot of levels. So it's going to be a good one. But what else has been going on? I don't know. I'm always hunting for something to watch that's good, that's different. There's been some crazy stuff on Paranormal Caught on Camera. Some guy got some dog men in a tree with blue eyes and really good, crazy good footage. I meant to write down his info so I could look him up. But as far as books and stuff, I haven't. Is there any other books you've been coming across, Wham, that's real good lately?
You mean paranormal books? Because I haven't really been reading paranormal books right at the moment. I read that Dark Man book that.
Oh yeah.
There's an author that he recommends, that the Dark Man book recommends. The author is Peter Gray, and he has written a whole bunch of books on. One of them is called The Red Goddess, and one of them is called Apocalyptic Witchcraft, and one of them is called The Two Antichrists. It's basically about Crowley, L. Ron Hubbard, and Jack Parsons. you know, and um, and he's got some really interesting takes on things. I mean, I don't agree with everything that he says, but he has probably one of the best analyses and critiques of Crowley that I've ever read. Without dissing the guy, without saying that the guy is a complete loser or anything. I mean, but he basically, he has a different take on on
Is it a
where.
history?
Well, there's a lot of history in it. This is his whoops. What did I knock over? Oh, this is in his Red Goddess book. His Red Goddess book is kind of a combination of it's part revelation, part anthropology, part history, part analysis. The first part of
Lots of boobs.
the first, well, that too. Completely into boobs. The first part, the first part of it, book 1, A History of Mystery, Revelations, Weeping We Remembered Zion, How Many Miles to Babylon, is kind of an analysis of the book of Revelation. He argues that the book of Revelation, and this is where I quibble with him a little bit, that the book of Revelation is sort of like it was the reason why it was finally included in the Bible, because it was almost not included in the Bible. And in fact, there are some Eastern Bibles in which it isn't included. But the reason why it was finally included in the Western Bible is because it's a genre of literature for one thing, but it also in a sense kind of puts to rest what John of Patmos attempts to do in it. He's the prophet. He attempts to put to rest both Rome, the kind of paganism of Rome, plus the deeper roots of goddess pagan worship, which Rome had adopted some elements of, which come from Mesopotamia and Egypt. And I mean, and he has a whole system of analysis where he's looking at this. But part of the reason why he does this is because he argues that the book of Revelation has become the kind of the central apocalyptic metaphor of our time, of the Western world. Nostradamus uses it. John Dee used it. It's sort of in the background of every single apocalyptic movie that has ever been made in the United States. And, the only quibble that I have with him about that is that historically, because he doesn't talk about this, historically, the book of Revelation, while it was included in the Bible in the West, was not that important in the West until the Crusades. And then during that period, it became sort of foregrounded because of writings, because of the Crusades, and also because of writings like philosophical writings like those promoted by a philosopher and mystic whose name was John Scotus Erigena. And where he basically creates the rubric of the history of the church that is later used by all kinds of people, all kinds of groups, from the Rosicrucians to the Templars on down to most evangelical Christians, essentially. So I would argue, actually, that the book of Revelations only became important during the Crusades, and then was retooled yet once again by various evangelical and Christian movements coming out of the Protestant Reformation, and usually used as a means by which to fight back against science, essentially. But other than that, his analysis is really good. So that I've been reading Peter Gray. It's Grey. And I've just started reading his Apocalyptic Witchcraft, which is kind of his manifesto. Um, the Red Goddess is sort of like his declaration about the goddess, and then Apocalyptic Witchcraft is more about kind of it's kind of like, I think that's where the Dark Man guy got a lot of his ideas about the Dark Man, is from Apocalyptic Witchcraft. So that's what I've been reading lately. Not a lot of paranormal stuff.
Yeah, that Dark Man was a perfect Halloween show. That was something else for sure. That was a good one.
Well,
Let
we
me.
also have Friday the 13th to celebrate today too. And all kinds of Jason memes all over the place.
Yes.
It's been an eventful day.
Yes. Except I always like Friday the 13th. It doesn't bother me.
Friday the 13th is I was disappointed to hear Brian Fuller, who did Hannibal, that show that was really good, that got canceled after 3 seasons, even though it had like 5-star reviews with Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal Lecter. He was going to be doing a Friday the 13th prequel series on Peacock about the Voorhees family, and it got canceled. Now someone else is doing it, but it would have been insane. That guy makes some insane stuff, but for some reason he can't stay on the project. Something happens, or I guess he clashes with the studios. He was going to do the interview, the vampire show that was out, the newer one, and that fell through. Last I heard, he's doing some new Christine, which that should be good, but he definitely does some weird stuff. But it's just sad to hear that Friday 13th thing fell through.
Is it on the car? The Christine?
Yeah. He's supposed to be doing a Christine. Hopefully he ain't been canceled from that, but
The book was really good. The movie was.
I love the John Carpenter movie. It's great.
I just thought the book was very well done.
I got the book. I need to read it. I got it. I got it not too long ago. I've never read it, so I'm looking forward to that.
I enjoyed it. It was different than the movie, but Stephen King just has these great ideas that everyone can relate to, and he addresses them. Maybe our anxiety is diminished some after he walks us through these horrible events.
And I know they're finally going to be doing the Dark Tower series. I know they tried to do a movie that apparently I never watched it, but it got horrible reviews. But they're finally going to try to do a series. I think Mike Flanagan's doing it. I think that's who's doing it, but something else Mike Flanagan's doing. Oh, he's doing a Carrie on Amazon show, like a series about Carrie. But I think he's also working on Dark Tower, like a series, which that's going to be complex. That's a lot of books. So if it does well, it'll last a long time at least. But you read any of the Dark Tower books? The Gunslinger?
I have not.
That's some Stephen King to get into if you get a chance at the library. But there's a bunch of the books, but the Dark Tower books. It's kind of like a weird Western situation, but it's a trip. It's different than most of his other stuff. It's kind of like a fantasy, but like a Western. Like, it's hard to explain, but it's different. So one he did, that's a children's book, a fantasy, Eyes of the Dragon. I've always loved that. That's a good one too, like a fantasy story about a dragon. But I get all his stuff. I'm behind though lately. I try to get most of his new stuff, but I have it. I'm just behind on it. Definitely want to see Nosferatu. I don't know if it's started yet, but I'll see it eventually. It's getting really good reviews. The new Nosferatu. It's at theaters. I think William Dafoe's a vampire hunter.
And the original movie that came out 100 and almost 3 years ago. It really stands the test of time, and just to show you how much of a nerd I am. Yeah, there's an appeal. I have those movies appeal to me. Like some of the silent movies. A lot of them were horror or um, science fiction, and you could see where 70 years later, um, a lot of the directors are working in some aspect of those silent movies. You know, they've always been, the foundation of so many ideas. I just really, and I'm just glad you brought up Nosferatu because uh, it is a fantastic movie, and it just it really is a template for so many great movies.
Yeah, it's a good one. You ever heard of one that was by Lon Chaney called London After Midnight that got lost? You ever hear that story?
I I have not.
Look it up.
Sounds interesting.
Look it up. There's pictures of him as he's kind of like a weird vampire with a top hat, kind of like a Jack the Ripper, but I'm not sure exactly what the story was, but supposedly they made it and something happened and it got lost. So it's like this big horror mystery called London After Midnight. And what's interesting though, on Kickstarter not too long ago, the Cheney family and a comic book artist got together and made a graphic novel telling the whole story of London After Midnight, like the actual. I don't know. I don't know how close it is. I'm sure. I mean, they have connections through the Cheney family, I would think. But basically, they did decide to do that movie in comic book form and made like a leather manuscript of it. It hasn't came out yet, but sounds pretty interesting. And
Yeah, there. I think I don't know if I'm not going to get up and run into the other room and get a Hitchcock book, but I think there is one of the uh, very earliest Hitchcock movies that also disappeared, and there's like 6 still photos are all that survive. But things like that happen. You get some of these fires, and you know the film isn't preserved properly. So things like that do happen. I'm intrigued by what you uh, London After Midnight. I'll have to check into that.
do some remember those words and just look it up. You'll find all kinds of craziness about it. But it's kind of like a big horror legend. And there's pictures of him dressed up as the character that exists and stuff. And he looks pretty crazy, pretty weird looking. But kind of reminds me of who is it? Santiago from Interview the Vampire, the Armand character with the top hat, but his face is kind of like this grinning, like tooth grin. That's really weird, but it's definitely there's some weird shows that dogs making noises. There's some I found some Alfred Hitchcock. I forget the name of it, but maybe it's like the Alfred Hitchcock Hour or something like that. But it's like little stories, kind of like the Twilight Zone. But also another one me and Christina came across, Tales of the Unexpected by the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory dude narrates it. I always have trouble saying his name. Raw Dahl, or is that right? Whatever you know I'm talking about. Raw Dahl, am I saying that right? But the guy that wrote Charlie and Chocolate Factory has a weird ass little thing. It's on Amazon. The other one, the Hitchcock one's on Peacock. But I think there was one about a wife's husband that died, and he decided to, like, some doctor put his brain in this mechanism to where he'd still be there in consciousness. And he's like, there's an eye, and she has to talk to the eye, and it gets creepy. I forget the rest, but there's some weird little crazy, like old Twilight Zone-ish kind of shows. Oh, those are the good ones. But yeah, he's like in this machine, and she has to look down and see his eye, and it was really weird. Just weird things you come across, like those weird shows. I know Andy's talked about one, Have Gun Will Travel. I've got a hold of all those, but I haven't watched them yet. That's like an old Western that's supposed to be kind of weird. Have Gun Will Travel.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. The guy that did Twilight Zone did a
The
Western.
Loner.
Yeah, did you ever see that?
I've seen one episode. I what Lloyd Bridges was the main character. Is that right?
I think so.
A-
Yeah.
And it was actually um the episode I saw was a good one. It had a promising start, and there was like behind the scenes stuff that happened, and it just suddenly got shut down.
Yeah, that's a
But
weird.
I mean, it was. I think the Twilight Zone was
After it.
pull. Yeah, it was just not renewed after the 63, 64 season, and Rod went into the Loner, and people, other people on the set, it was just people just couldn't work together, and it just suddenly ended. I think that's the way I understood it. But I did see one episode. It's a very interesting Western.
I'll have to check it out. Is it pretty much like your standard Western, or is there other weird stuff?
No, it's not. It is not like a Twilight Zone Western. It was more of black and white version of Gunsmoke. And I think it was Lloyd Bridges was the main character.
And there's a guy that I was talking to. His name's Silas. He did a comic on Kickstarter called The Devil's Gate, and he may be coming on with his the artist and to get into some weird stuff like westerns and stuff, like a lot of the comics and movies and stuff. Like there's Jonah Hex in the comics. That's kind of a weird western, and then there's a lot of westerns that influence his comic, but his comic's supposed to be kind of, I guess, weird west and apocalyptic. But he got kickstarted. Luckily, it's kind of close. I didn't think it was going to, but a lot of times when they go into the last hours, that's when you'll really rack it up. I've been kind of watching it. It's pretty trippy on there. Like these artists get together with their comics and different projects. There's all kinds of weird stuff on there. I saw some weird thing that turns your phone into a musical instrument and you blow in it somehow, and it was like going through the roof. I've seen some comics on there get $600,000. I think the G.I. Joe Marvel collection from Image that they re-released got into the millions.
You might need to get Arlen back to get into some of this Twilight Zone history, as well as
Batman.
Yeah, his in-depth knowledge of comics, how to present the artwork, like going from a phone to musical instruments. What would be some way to present that kind of transformation in a couple, 2, 3 comic book style drawings. So he he's be a resident artist for you. Oh, and you still need to reschedule with Dennis to talk about America's Stonehenge.
Wait, did he cancel? I don't remember.
I think it was on vacation.
I think he showed. Wait, let me look. My memory's horrible lately. If so, that wasn't that long ago. I'm pretty sure he showed up, but I think, let me check. God, man, I'm out of control. I think my brain.
I think there was another schedule. It's like.
No, he showed up. He was there. That one happened. You were there. Yeah, that was 2 months ago, so no wonder. 2 whole months.
It was. Maybe he's forgetting that he did the show. He's like,
he did it.
Is that the guy who did the show? I was like, I don't know.
Wham was there, and you were there.
Okay. Maybe he's thinking of someone else. He was saying,
yeah. I'll send it to you. We're all losing our minds.
Yeah, that's about the point where I am now.
Yeah, but it's okay. Sauron, Lord of Darkness, has America now. We're living in a Trumplegooch world, so it's expected that we're going to deal with some mind garbage for a little while, for 4 years, or for the rest of our lives, because Trumplegooch Emperor is in now. But anyway, let me read some of the guests and we'll close out. I'll send you that Dennis one. You can send it to him. He was here, I promise. It was a good show. We talked about some alien stuff. Oh, I sent it to you. Okay. Let me look at some scheduling. What's going on? Where is it? Eric Grimsrud, that's January 10th. Hill James Glenn, a stunt man. He doesn't like Trumplegooch. He's coming back on. That's the 17th. Try to get Jay on those shows because he finger bangs Trumplegooch. So if you align a person that doesn't like Trumplegooch, it's fun to watch them. January 24th, Wild Trees. Those 3 are Jay's. And then January 31st, Mark DeCamp. That's the guy, the energy specialist that fell asleep and missed the show. Wham will be there for that one. He seems like a good guy. I'm not knocking him. I feel like I could go to sleep all the time any second, so I'm not knocking him. I was just comparing it with that Afterlife Death show, sort of. Rick Osmond, February 7th. That's Wham. That's a good one about the Ohio Valley and 7 bears and all these archaeological craziness. Plus, he's
Graves of the Golden Bear.
Plus, he's a government spook, so those are always good. But seems like a cool dude. I was talking to him. But February 14th, Wham. If you need that one off Wham for some specialties, you let me know. That's Valentine's.
I probably don't.
Okay. February 21st. That's Jay again. And 28th. I'm still working on the rest. That's all I got. But Mark's helping me with that. Thank God, because I've lost my mind. So he's helping me with scheduling.
Yeah, we're working on a few other ideas too. I'm just sorry about Victor. That it's just like one of those.
We'll get him back. Viv and Victor got along great on the phone. He got sick. I'm not upset about it. It sucks.
It's like this time of the year, you always need some kind of backup because sooner or later someone's going to call you 3 hours before the show and say, I have laryngitis, sneezing, coughing, I don't feel well, that kind of thing. And that's what tonight was. People see Victor Baines on the History Channel type shows doing interpretations of Nostradamus's prophecies. We'll get him back. He's very I find him to be a very nice guy. I've worked with him several times. Very interesting.
He called us two birds of a feather or something like that about me and him. So from our little chit chat, so that was good.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll definitely get him back on. You got a Tim Swartz or a Preston Dennett hook up? Because I wouldn't mind those guys.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know,
Preston's on the
check
network.
in
But I
with.
don't really know him. I've interviewed Preston once in written form, but I know he's from Georgia, so that's why. I mean, I'm curious what
Oh.
kind of UFO stuff. I'm from Georgia, so.
Yeah. Preston has really extensive list of books on USOs and UFOs.
Yeah, he's got a ton of stuff.
Yeah, and
I want him on the mongoose.
Oh, yeah, that's a book you really don't want to miss. I really had a great time reading that one. It's a captivating story.
What about my Michael Carter hookup? He's still doing things on Friday night. Dang it!
Yeah, it's got a little dicey after Hurricane Helene.
Oh yeah. He's up
Yeah,
there.
he was like in the middle of that. He wasn't able to make it to his church.
Oh man.
Because the roads were clogged with trees. I'll put a word.
Yeah, just check. If he can't, it's no big deal. But it was a good interview. I like that one.
Michael's really one of the best. But he since when was that? October, for 2 months, he's been part of the rebuilding. Working with the community. What a mess that.
And I really need you to get Jesus on, because we just got to do that for our souls. I'm serious.
Okay, that's. I don't know.
So there was this other guy that it's not the guy you got, but there was another guy. I could look up his name, but it's been a while since I've interviewed him. But he has a book from a Dolores Cannon Situation publisher, and it's like that, where he interviews Jesus. I had him on a million years ago.
Yeah, David.
But
we'll talk with. I'll get David scheduled. Just a few people. Like that. Michael and that natural disaster.
Okay. What are you barking at? Oh yeah. Before we go, we're going. Me and Christina had a crazy situation. Not with this dog, but the other dog. A little weenie mix named Pumpkin, because he looks like a pumpkin. We were out walking all the dogs at this park, and Pumpkin is always usually on a leash, but for some reason he wasn't for like a split second, and we turned it around, and suddenly Pumpkin goes under a gate at a water pump facility, weird place, a chain gate, and there's a trailer and chain gate. He goes under the trailer, and I can't get to him. And I'm freaking out because there's like these holes that he could have fell into and died. And suddenly I'm looping the leash through the chain link fence. I put it on his neck through a hole in the chain link fence, and I'm having to walk with him back to the house and do the leash through links to get him out of there, and had to use French fries. Christina and me lured him back and grabbed him with French fries. If it were not those French fries, Pumpkin probably would have croaked or stayed there all night. Or it was just, I tried to dive under the trailer. I'm all cut up. Like, I'm freaking out. This dog's going to fall down a well, whatever the hell that was back there. It was terrifying. It was terrifying. That, it felt like I was in a horror movie. But anyway, I appreciate you and Wham. I feel like beat up, so just need to rest. I'm looking forward to the vacation coming up after next week's show to recharge the batteries. But thanks, you guys, for carrying the convo, because I feel like a poop. So thank you.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. We'll just have to get Victor rescheduled. You'll really enjoy it when he
Yeah, we will. We'll get him on. Just let me know. I'll get you some dates. But I was gonna name it the Batter Santa UFO Show. That's all I got. But everybody have a good night. See you next week.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night,
night.
everybody.